Celine,
Yes.
thank you very much for talking to me.
Thanks for having me here.
Tell me about you growing up.
Well, I mean, you know that you and I both met in, I guess it was September of 2000, which would have been the first year of grade 7. And of course, September 11th was September of 2001. So,
A year later.
yeah, so I'd say growing up was the period before 9/11. I'd say I grew up in Ottawa. I lived, from the earliest memories I have, I grew up in a blended family. My mom and dad separated before I really have any memories of them being together. And but it was a very amicable situation because my father ended up firing his divorce lawyer so he could go out with her, and she became my stepmom. And because of the legal proceedings of my mom having some copyright that needed to be resolved, she ended up meeting a patent lawyer who worked with her divorce lawyer, who ended up being my stepdad. So that's how so I end up with I have a half brother and a half sister who are very close in age to me, and we all grew up in Ottawa together. But yeah, I'd say that, growing up in Ottawa in the 90s, pretty great experience overall. And very fortunate. My dad was a physician. Both my dad and my stepdad were Egyptian. So my dad was a physician. My stepdad was an engineer turned patent lawyer. My stepmom and mother were both white Canadian, but my stepmom being a school teacher, then a lawyer, and my mom being a historian and then a lawyer. So a very privileged upbringing. So working upper middle class professionals in Ottawa.
And obviously, we met, like you said, in grade 7, gifted program.
Yes.
After us doing, regular school, high school, you went to San Diego for aerospace engineering?
Yes, I did my bachelor's. I did a bachelor's of science in aerospace engineering at the University of California, San Diego, UCSD. As I like to refer to it, UCLA's less famous, more weird sister. The SD stands for social disorder.
You always wanted to go to space.
Yeah, I did until that one fateful day in May 2006 when my lung collapsed. So, and they also canceled the space shuttle that summer, so that was a lot going on.
There was a couple of signs.
Yeah.
Tell everyone. I remember sort of, but your lung collapsing. What happened?
Well, it started to fall over, and then it fell over. No, I had a spontaneous pneumothorax, which just happens to people who are tall, skinny, don't have a lot of muscle tissue, and it can happen when the little bubble forms in the wall between your lung and your lung cavity. And once it starts, it just sort of unzips, and it feels like you're being slowly stabbed down with a long sword. But it's really it's not outpatient, but pretty close. They put a tube in you, they drain it, you go home, and you can't go into space or be a scuba diver after that.
You can't ever go into space because of that?
Yeah.
So it's like there's like a seam on your lungs, sort of? Do they have to stitch it?
No. It's like dealing with an inner tube, really. Like it's the whole lung is just held in place by negative pressure. So it's just like
it gets pressed down and it can't open up.
No. It's like it's held up because there's suction between the lung and the lung cavity, and once you put any fluid in there, it collapses into itself, and then they drain the fluid, and just by breathing in, it fills up, and then they seal it up again, and it's like the only scar I got looks like a little pimple, so that's it. But I'm not here to talk about lung collapses.
After aerospace engineering,
yeah,
and I guess after you sort of, because you graduated when around
2011.
Okay, 2011. Okay. So you knew beforehand. You're like, I'm not going to space anymore.
No. And sorry, I interrupted.
No. That's totally fine. We're just having a conversation.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The thing is, I definitely feel like I could have. I was also disillusioned. It was the Iraq War. The military and I realized that I was there in the United States at the time, I thought it was a bad time. In hindsight, it was a golden era, probably the last one. But It looked like the United States civilian aerospace was going to be an era of contraction, and they wouldn't need people. They could just use all the space shuttle people in new roles. And the military-industrial complex was neither appealing to me nor would have welcomed me as a non-citizen. So I really felt like I had no role in aerospace engineering, no future in it. And I tried being a teacher for a while and realized I didn't have what it took to manage a classroom. But I took a class in 2010 that really quantified climate change for me. And that changed my life. That was whenever I took that class in 2010, they were like, oh shit, we are really in trouble with this climate change thing. But there's still a chance we can avoid the worst elements of it. And I have a skill set that I could use to help that struggle. So that's what I would say I came out of graduation with, an idea that climate change needs to be addressed.
And so then you did a master's in green energy.
Yes, I saved up for a couple of years during the Great Recession, but by 2013 I went to UBC and got a master's of engineering in clean energy engineering, as you said.
So climate change is real?
Yes, climate change is real. Climate change, here's the thing. For anyone who doubts climate change, the three questions, I'm pretty sure it's three that I've boiled this down to. Do you believe, if you think climate change isn't real, you have to answer three questions. Do you believe that the accounting that makes every oil, gas, and coal company rich is wrong? Do you not think they know how much oil, gas, and coal they sell? That's question number one. Question number two is, do you think that the chemical properties of carbon dioxide are not known? Or if they are known, that have you provided some new evidence that for why everyone in history has measured the properties of CO2 incorrectly? And third is, out of the most basic laws of thermodynamics, that energy cannot be created nor destroyed, just transferred. What did they get wrong in that, and what is the new law of thermodynamics that you have discovered? Because if you haven't discovered a new law of thermodynamics, if you haven't discovered new properties of CO2, carbon dioxide, and you haven't found that, we were just pretending to be filthy, filthy rich for a century and a half. If you can't deal with accounting, chemistry, or thermodynamics, there's nothing to be said.
I want to break that down, and we're going to work backwards through it, kind of like you just did, because I think that some of that stuff may just be like a bit difficult for some people to understand. So in terms of let's start with the thermodynamics. So why do thermodynamics matter in relation to the climate crisis? I understand in terms of you're saying the energy transfer. So it's the energy is. Sorry, go ahead.
All the energy. I want you to think of all of the energy, almost all of the energy that we have access to, or that matters to any bit of life or anything you have ever thought of, comes from the sun. The sun. I'm going to go out on a limb here and saying we are not dealing with heliocentrism today. The sun is in the middle, and the Earth goes around that, not the other way around.
Heliocentrism would be when people believe that.
No, heliocentrism is the sun's in the center of the solar system.
Okay.
Geocentrism is no.
Is the Earth is the center of the solar system?
Not dealing with that. Not dealing with that. The energy coming off the sun. The energy that comes off the sun. This is a very simplified model.
Yes.
But the energy that comes off the sun warms up the Earth. So most of the energy that comes from the sun is visible light. Sure. So that's why it can come through the atmosphere. It just passes through. That's why we can see out into space or at the sun. It warms up the Earth, which then the energy there increases the rest temperature of the Earth, and the Earth then
the rest temperature is being the normal temperature of the planet.
Yeah, and that gets higher. So the Earth emits energy in infrared, heat. The heat given off by the planet is then insulated by the atmosphere. So this is why we are warmer than, the cold of space. If you're on the moon, it's minus 170 degrees when you can't see the sun.
There's a bubble around the Earth that the heat heat doesn't escape, or not all
Yeah.
of the heat escapes from.
Yeah, and it's a balance. Like, this is the whole thing. And it's not always constant. This is why at certain times in the Earth's history, everything's frozen over, and at other times in the Earth's history, there are no ice caps. So, this is the key thermodynamics, that if we know how much energy the sun is giving out, and we know how big this Earth is, you can figure out how much energy per second is hitting the Earth. Then the question then becomes about the properties in which the energy either passes through or is insulated by the atmosphere. That's what we're talking about. And that's when we come to the second question, chemistry. CO2, carbon dioxide, and this is once again an oversimplification. Like, I had to, there is quantum chemistry, but this is more about how photons jump between atoms and just raise the temperature. But in a simplistic way, we can just think about it in terms of molecule gets hot or molecule doesn't interact. Okay. CO2, carbon dioxide, just like almost all gases, is transparent to visible light. So the visible light, either if it hits the CO2, it just gets emitted out the other side, basically has no role. CO2 is not as transparent. So let's say it's either opaque or it blocks infrared light, but not visible light. So if you think about this, this is why we call it the greenhouse effect. This is incidentally not how a greenhouse works, but but the idea being that the light can come in, but since it changes form by heating up the Earth and getting re-emitted as heat, the heat can't get out, or not as quickly and not as much. So that's why the chemistry. Like, if somebody says, no, I've got if you filled a tube filled with CO2, and you put you can test this. You could test it at home. You could have a infrared source that you can measure, and you could have the infrared sensor at the other end of the tube, and you could see how I fill the tube with standard atmosphere. How does it go through? I empty it to a vacuum. How does it go through? I fill it with CO2. How does it go through? You can test it. If anyone out there does not believe in the properties of CO2 that have been established for hundreds of years and tested time and time again, try it.
Try it. So really quickly, what you're saying with that basically is the more CO2 that's in the atmosphere, the more the light will still pass through the CO2, but the infrared energy of the sun will be caught in it, and so we're catching more infrared energy and heating up more.
Absolutely, and it's more complex than this because there's other gases that have a role in this, like methane, I forget. Those are the two big ones. And from an engineering perspective, I'm like, yeah, and the other ones, I'll be concerned about those when the big two aren't a problem. But there are more gases. But this is what we call global warming potential of a gas.
And then going back to the first point about oil companies making money, because some people would say, of course they're making money. Like, how does that?
The question is this: it is not what it's a question of accounting. Like, if you said they just make anything up, I'm like, okay, but do you a rich person actually listen? I appreciate there's a lot of scams out there, but a very rich company or country usually has a pretty good idea of how much money they have.
Sure.
And that's the accounting part of it. And accounting, once humans, I don't need to, I'm not an anthropologist, but a lot of anthropologists will tell you that shortly after inventing the idea of counting, we end up with accounting. Here's the thing. If you make $5 a barrel of oil, let's say you make a profit of $5 a barrel, and you've got $5 billion from the profit of oil. You got a pretty good idea that you sold 1 billion barrels of oil. Simplistic model.
Sure.
The biggest companies in the world, we're we're talking Saudi Aramco, we're talking Gazprom, we're talking whoever sold coal in the olden days, Satanic Mills, everything. They wouldn't have, if they were overpaying for their energy, they wouldn't have gotten rich. But they did get rich. This is one of the Industrial Revolution drives some of the greatest inequality in human history.
But how does that prove global warming? They just got rich because they sold a product that people needed, right?
Okay, so here's the amount. It's not, they sold a high carbon fuel in a large amount. You know that they sold the amount, right? So let's be I'm just are we going to have to argue that these people are rich?
No, not at all.
And if we accept that they're rich, it's because they didn't sell. It's not a diamond. Like the Hope diamond is one very small, but it's a one very small, very high value thing. But no, they're selling huge amounts of these things.
Right.
And we agree that they've sold a huge amount.
Of course,
oil.
a lot of
so
oil.
we sold it.
They've made billions of dollars.
Oil, natural gas, and coal.
Yes. Fuels. Fuels.
Fossil fuels.
Okay,
fossil
sure.
fuels. They're defined as fossil fuels.
Absolutely.
So we know that they sold a lot of these. In fact, we know how much they've sold in every year that ever has been production.
Sure.
Like we have the accounts.
Yeah.
Since we know how much of these fossil fuels have been sold, and we know the carbon content of these fuels and the equation of burning, combusting fossil fuels, you can make the argument that, well, maybe they did, you can argue about how perfect or imperfect it was, but then you have, if you
what was, excuse me?
Combustion. Like,
okay.
if you burn a carbon fuel with complete combustion means you had enough oxygen to burn it all to carbon dioxide.
Yes.
No soot.
Yes, correct.
Soot is carbon.
Right.
You can say, well, we know, if this was all burned
at 100% combustion.
Yeah.
Which it almost never is.
Yeah, no, but I mean that's what every consumer of fossil fuels wants to.
Of course, yeah. You want to get the most bang for your buck.
They try to get clean. Yeah, exactly. So with that, we can say we know how much was sold. We know how much carbon was in the fuel that was sold. We know the chemistry of the carbon that was sold, so we can tell how much the CO2 has been released into the atmosphere. And from the models of thermodynamics and the model of how much CO2 was released, the changes in the Earth's temperature line up to a very high degree of alignment.
The amount of CO2 of the fuel.
Yeah. And those are the three things. Like, everyone can argue about everything else, but I'm like, listen, if you show me that the accounting was like completely off,
sure, yep.
or that CO2 has
and we know they've made billions for sure. Like they're all exceedingly rich.
Yeah.
So.
And if you say like, no, CO2 has this new magical property that only happens like,
that doesn't seem to be the case.
No, if you can test it and demonstrate it,
but no one's been able to do such a thing. Right.
And the third one is like, if the laws of thermodynamics do not exist, then
could they be?
No. Yes. Let me ask you this. When did you ever have a cold cup of coffee just get hotter than the room? Yes.
How?
And then if you just, from those three things, then we don't have to have this is climate change real? That's not the issue. The question is, what do we do?
What do we do?
This is here's the thing. The shortest answer is, I've spent, I don't know where your listeners are in, but we're here in Ontario, Canada. I live in BC, Canada. BC we had the first jurisdiction in any area of the world with a carbon tax. This was started by a conservative rat bastard of a premier who, got a memo.
Conservatives started the world's first carbon tax?
Yeah, because he for whatever, here's the thing. I'll take a quick segue. I want you to take a guess. In the year is 1990, the UN General Assembly. A major world leader addresses the General Assembly of the UN and says that climate change is an existential threat to the Earth and that the world needs some sort of global carbon tax to address it. Who is that world leader in 1990?
I'm going to guess it's Al Gore.
Nope. 1990. He wasn't vice president until 1993.
I just wasn't sure if he was in some other form of politics before that. Usually they someone in the Senate or.
Do you want another guess, or do you want me to tell you?
No, you tell me.
Margaret Thatcher. Wow. People forget Margaret Thatcher was a chemist before she was a politician. She actually was part of the team that invented soft serve ice cream. Not making that up. So, no, I don't know. Listen, Gordon Campbell, never say his name in polite company in British Columbia or somebody will kick you in the teeth and you'll deserve it. But he had one good idea. He implemented the carbon tax. He made it so, listen, don't worry, he figured out a way to rat fuck the people of BC. And it was like he cut income taxes and business taxes, but set up in such a way that his buddies in business would do better in the long term. But in theory, it was revenue neutral. The point being, we had a carbon tax for the longest time. The carbon tax was the idea that, okay, the reason we use fossil fuels is because they are useful. They're very energy dense. We just got to dig them up and burn them, and then you get all this
made out of them.
Yeah, no, that's not even ignoring the petrochemical industry. Like
we're talking just fuel.
We're just as fuel. They're the best fuel, energy density. Like they last a long time because they've lasted hundreds of millions of years. They're not going to just
expire.
Or don't let it touch water, otherwise it'll blow up a city, or something like that. No, it's a wonderful fuel. Like everything about, we love energy for all the things it can do. That's the thing. You don't want a society with a lot of energy is generally a prosperous society. So the appeal of energy is we don't want a low energy society, but we don't want a high carbon society because climate change will irrevocably change the climate. And if you thought, here's the thing, climate change is bad.
What's the danger? Because people will say, like you said before, the climate has always changed, right?
Yeah.
So what's the danger?
The biggest, most direct danger to humanity is to our food supply. Like when I talk about that, yes, sometimes the Earth has been frozen over, and sometimes there have been no ice caps. At no part of any of those eras were humans farming. We have had probably the most stable 6,000 years of climate, probably in the last couple million years, and that's when we started farming, and we've been around for a couple 100,000 years. That is a bad sign, because it says that, oh wow, it seems that agriculture doesn't really take off until things get really stable for a long time. And we are leaving that stable climactic period. The world will be...
Because of what we're doing?
Yes, because we're, just as I said, energy is great for society, but putting extra energy into a global, into an atmosphere, into the oceans, this affects everything. It makes rain patterns more unpredictable. If you were a farmer, tell any farmer you ask them what they think about climate change, you'll get an answer. Ask them what they think about, well, what if I told you that the rains are going to be unpredictable for the rest of your life? They'd listen then. If you tell people, the forest fires are because, there's going to be, it's not that necessarily that we're only going to have, it's not going to be droughts forever. It's going to be floods and droughts. You're going to have them simultaneously, or in the same year, or in the same 5 year. And you might say, well, on a 100-year basis, maybe it's the same, but it won't be. But even if it was, you can't build an agricultural society off of that. But wait, there's more. There were all by CO2. If other than that's just the biggest thing. We're not even getting to heat stroke. We're not getting into We're just talking the most direct things: forest fires, droughts, floods. We're not even talking about greater. This is where the argument: are there going to be stronger storms or more storms, or maybe we'll get both? That these are going to become more and more of a problem. And then. Just from the heating, just from the increased temperature, the oceans, the sea level will rise just because the water is warmer, and warm things are slightly bigger. That's without even taking into account.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. This is
so the mass of water without losing, without gaining anything.
Even if you imagine the ice caps didn't do anything.
Yes, it would still increase because of the heat.
Because it's warmer.
A significant amount. There's a lot of water on the planet, so a significant amount.
It depends. Is it a significant amount to someone in Denver? No. Significant amount to someone in Miami? You tell me. This is the problem. And so we're talking, and this is just from the heat. We haven't talked, as the, we're not talking, this is the oceans are going to suffer even more. We're talking about ocean, CO2. We're already past 400 parts per million. And you can measure this. Anyone can measure this.
What does that mean?
That there are, for every million molecules in the atmosphere, 400 of those are carbon dioxide.
But what does it mean in the context of like why is that?
Before we started the Industrial Revolution, it was 250 parts per million. So we have added basically from
60-ish%.
Yeah. Like,
but what will that do? Like what's it gonna do?
Like here's the thing, and this is one of these problems. Like if I from just looking at it from a back of the envelope situation, if I said to you the role that CO2 plays in trapping heat in the Earth system went up 60%. That's the first thing. The energy kept in, but that's what I'm saying. That's only the first one. It's just Earth is warmer. That's just dealing with that, and that causes all the. But having that much more CO2 in the atmosphere also means you end because of what a thing called partial pressure. This is that the amount, and I'm really sorry to my first year chemistry professors, but it basically, in simplistic terms, it means the concentration of air, if you have a gas and a liquid, and the gas and liquid are in contact with each other, and a constituent molecule of that gas is soluble in that liquid, the concentration in the gas will eventually reach equilibrium so that the amount of gas, the parts per million, the concentration of gas in the atmosphere will match the concentration of the gas dissolved in the liquid. That does not mean they'll be the same amount, but it'll mean like we have air in the atmosphere and air in the ocean dissolved. And if we have and if it's 400 parts per million in the atmosphere of CO2, it means eventually you'll have 400 parts per million of CO2 dissolved in the ocean. And CO2 makes the water acidic. And we're already at 400 parts per million. At about we're already making it hard for life to make shells. Like by 1,000 parts per million, like shellfish can't exist anymore anywhere in the ocean. And I don't need to tell you that shellfish are part of the food chain, and people eat shellfish. Like people eat shellfish. More importantly than that, lots of animals in the ocean rely on eating shellfish. And the more CO2 we dissolve, the worse that gets. That's even taking out overfishing. We're making an ocean. We will eventually be making an ocean that only jellyfish can live in. So it's bad, right? It's real bad.
Well, I promise, because I'm really not trying to like.
I know.
I'm not trying to troll you, but I
got a degree in this stuff,
and I need to press you on it just because these are the kind of things that people talk about and think about. So, there's been something that I've seen going around recently. This news article, and I've seen. I don't know who else is talking about it, but I've seen it specifically in reference to Joe Rogan, which I'm sure you'll love. But he is talking about how there's this new chart that's come out with data from NASA, and it shows that we're actually in like a historic cool period, like compared to like the heat temperature. Have you seen this? Do you know about this?
No, I think we should. Here's the thing: whenever you see something like that, I'm like, you need to provide me with a source, otherwise I can't speak to it.
Basically, I see him in because he's just talking about how it's like, well, we're getting warmer, but actually this is like this historic cool period, but it's essentially like. It's the macro look at the data, and then when you look at it on like a 1,000-year scale or whatever, it's like, oh no, it shows this consistent, and then it's spiking up
if you're
now.
saying listen, if you want to make a point that compared to the age of the dinosaurs, we live in a much cooler period. It doesn't matter. This is missing the point. I don't listen. If Joe Rogan and all of his listeners if they're committed to making Jurassic Park a reality, then there's no problem. The problem is not that. It's like I said, if you can show me a farmer, if you can show me a successful farm operation from 50 million years ago, then there's no problem. You just have to shift how we farm today to how that we farm in a world with no ice caps. With no disruptions to anyone. People lost their shit about the price. I don't think this is really the reason he got elected, but supposedly Trump was elected promising to bring food costs down.
Price of eggs.
Yeah, price egg, Trump take egg, all that stuff. But this is the thing: if the world is going to turn towards populism and fascism over historically very small changes in the price of food, imagine what could happen if we have, say, 10 droughts in a row.
Is America turning towards fascism?
100%. And here's the thing. It's one of these things where I hate to say I'm German Jewish, and it's exactly the stuff I was raised on since every year in the 90s, and all the stuff I thought there was no point in learning and everything like that. It's like, God, it only took one lifetime. But yeah, America is it's not turning towards fascism. America is in a fascist state right now. That not everyone has realized this doesn't change the fact that this has happened.
Is there anything positive? Because not that I feel like you're such a positive person. Just in terms of the state of the world, it's like, okay, so we're doing badly with climate change. We're doing badly with our social management structures.
They're all connected. The connection is disregard. People say I don't trust experts, and I'm like, that's fine. There's a difference between saying, I don't trust this person versus I don't trust the whole system and institution of the method. And this is the thing. This is why there isn't a way to have a successful, complex society if that, for all these people will say, oh, I don't trust doctors. I don't but they all I've never seen one of them take their kid to a blacksmith to have for the treatment. Everyone's talking out of their ass about what they actually believe, but when the shit hits the fan, they're surprised that, all the anti-vaxxers who then died from COVID and then beg on their deathbed for, surely there's something you can do for me. I'm like, that was the vaccine. If you want people to say, people kill themselves trying to prove that the earth is flat in front of their own children. It's the COVID, listen, climate change is hard for the human brain to understand, not because it's complex, but because it takes place over a long period of time. And listen, the gas is invisible. If you could see that, oh shit, there sure is a lot of pink writing where CO2 just says in the atmosphere. People can't see. People have a hard time dealing with stuff that they can't see and happens over a long period of time. The problem with that is we saw how badly people deal with something that they can't see and happens over an incredibly short period of time. And everything that was bad about about human reactions to COVID is wow, we're really not going to be able to handle a lot of what's necessary to address climate change.
I think I know part of the reason, but and because I think you're so right, bringing COVID into it, where it's those are for sure two interconnected concepts, where it's when you said that, I was just thinking man, imagine if we had another COVID type situation today, right? Where it was there was still some goodwill, I feel, in the general population for the government, the authorities, whatever. And I feel now...
But the people that deny climate change, listen, once you start following... I'm not saying that every conspiracy theorist believes every conspiracy, but the more you spend on it, the more that you eventually end up... I'm not joking. This is not an exaggeration or a joke, but the people who dwell on, once you believe that the Earth is flat, but there's a conspiracy to hide it. The COVID is a hoax, but there's a conspiracy to hide it. Climate change is a hoax, and there's a conspiracy to hide that. Eventually, the people who really spend all their time on this, they're always looking for a scapegoat to blame it on, because if you if you look deep enough, wow, I can't find any evidence of the conspiracy. I'm well, then it's a very good conspiracy. And if you give them all long enough time, they always blame the same people. Jews. And I swear to you, this is something and this is why fashion, and maybe they won't do it directly, maybe they'll find there's a closer minority or group to blame soon, but this is what the connection to fascism. Fascism is a system, as opposed to liberalism, which we all live and breathe liberalism, whether we like it or not. This is just the world we exist in.
In the first world context, anyway.
Even say India is a liberal society where it's just not as wealthy as ours. But the point that I'm making, though, is, a fascist one is one where, if a great leader says, it doesn't matter that, crime is actually down. No, crime is up, and that's why you need to be sent to a concentration camp. But it doesn't matter. The truth doesn't matter. There's no verifiable truth under a fascist state. This is why all of these crises feed into each other. And there isn't a way to address climate change or any COVID or any future pandemic without addressing the rot in our democracies.
Okay, well, I appreciate you saying that, because I was going to go to and say, I think the convoy here opened my eyes to a lot of things, including like the mentality. This is my opinion, but the mentality of a lot of these people. And when I say these people, I mean, I was thinking about people who would bring their kids to the convoy, and we were talking about it at my old job. And anyway, do you think it's conspiracy that the government is just like seems incredibly incompetent? I guess. No. To an average person, I mean.
Here's the thing, when you say to an average person, the thing I will say to them is, I want to give people, who's an average person?
I mean, that's a great question.
Does an average person have a high school education?
I would say yes. I believe yes.
Okay.
Maybe that's a privileged take from me. I do think, I think someone who's at least high school educated is, I think that's generally the pact we have as a society, whatever, is, hey, we're going to give you an education.
You have to go at least until grade 10.
Yeah. You may not be able to afford post-secondary. That's definitely a huge luxury. But yeah, I think high school educated for sure.
Okay, but here's the thing. When you say, the thing I'll always say about this is, how much responsibility does a person have to know more than what they're taught? Let's say grade 10. Grade 10, you're mandated to go to grade 10. How much responsibility in a liberal society does a person have to educate themselves?
We're going to get into such
But I mean, no.
I was because I was going to say
I don't want to say, because here's the thing. Are we to say that if you can't explain it, you should treat everybody that you like? I don't mean this in a. I don't mean this in a. No, I don't mean this in a gotcha way. I mean this in I'm just talking to a person on the street. Do I assume they have a grade 10 literacy or education, and then I just have to okay, let's start with this. If I take two numbers and add them together, is that number that I have afterwards, is that the same number that I had if I put the two numbers together in a different way?
And I don't want to sound condescending. I'm not trying to imply that you but I get what you're saying, where it's when you're saying that, I'm I don't know, you might be right. The average person I run into, they might, and because to me, so much of it is the context of your life, right? It's okay, even if you sat through the schooling, that may have no use to you. I feel like education always has a benefit to you, and I think that you'd probably agree. But I think there's a lot of people who'd be my life requires me to do these things, and going to school really wasn't part of that.
Sure.
And again, we both admit we have very privileged upbringing.
Yeah, 100%.
So, yeah.
And this is the thing. It's one thing, and I don't want to just, I don't want to say that it's any one thing. We were of a generation where it was really drilled into us because, the internet was having an internet in your home was a new development. Having internet at school was a new development. Having internet in a workplace was even a new development. Sure. And one of the things we always were told was, don't believe everything you see online, and it is one. And but this is what I'm saying, if am I being condescending if I tell somebody, the library is free,
Depends how you say it, I guess.
Yes, and no, I mean, if there's somebody says, I want to learn more about this, sounds great. I'm going to do my own research. I'm library. Show me your library card. If somebody says to me, I don't believe, I know nothing about medicine, and I've watched a lot of YouTube videos, and here is why I think everything that every doctor says is bullshit. I'm going to be I really don't think you have a freedom to say that because people don't listen to you.
Let's take a macro view of this concept for a second, because I think one of the big things, and I think that this is something that people people in general, I think, are starting to realize is a big problem is who's the arbiter, right? Like, who's the person who's deciding, like, oh, these are the things, and not even that what's true and what's not true, because a lot of that is, like, just objective. Like, this is verifiably true through data, through research, whatever.
But that's out the window now. Like, these people are saying, like, that we're like, flat. I mentioned to you, that was not an exaggeration.
Sure.
A flat earther built his own rocket at home, never tested it, put himself in the rocket, and it took off, and the parachute got stuck on the launch pad. So even before he had gone, no, it tore off. But it meant that the minute he'd even gone 10 feet, he was a dead man. He just didn't know it yet. And you know what? And his wife and child were there to watching. And the point was he was going to fly high enough up and show that there's no curve. And
he was filming it or something?
Yeah. Yes. Don't worry, it's a snuff film. But I mean, here's the, how can you convince somebody who is like, I would have thought, listen, I don't know, am I naive for thinking that, hey man, if you're wrong in any part of this, and even if you're right about your theory, but just not great at building a rocket, maybe having your kid watch you die, do you think that's a possibility?
But do you think this is, because I agree with you, but then to me, where my brain goes is, okay, he got so, like, people get so riled up about stuff, and to me, part of it is because it's this real or imagined, this concept of a system of control, where there's, whatever it is, the system that decides what you're allowed to see and what you're not allowed to see. And again, I think there's a whole bunch of levels to this, where there's some things where I think we all agree, like, yeah, people probably should be able to see this. Like, there's lots of things, I'm sure, that we can all agree on. It's like, I don't think people should be able to see this.
Give me an example of what you would say is a universally agreed upon. What is a universally agreed upon thing that the general public shouldn't have access to?
I would say, like, child sexual content, for sure.
Sure.
Very gory, aggressive, like, murder footage. So, like, I mean, it's not even murders, but just stuff that I've seen through my news work.
Sure.
I still think about those things, and I personally, and this is just like bloody stump legs and stuff,
Yeah.
but I still think about that stuff, and I still think about it in terms of, like, I never thought about it before, but it's like really everything that you put into your brain is like you're burning these little stills in your brain.
Sure.
And some of that is like you can just throw it out, but some of it you can't, and it will always be there, and it will change the way that your brain works forever.
Sure.
And again, even in talking about that, I'm like, well, who gets to decide? Who gets to decide what's right and what's wrong? I just think there are some things we probably all agree that shouldn't be allowed, like we shouldn't have access to.
Mm-hmm.
I think that generally everyone would agree with that, but then it's like, where's the line? Like, I'm pretty liberal, I don't know if you call it liberal, but I'm pretty liberal with this stuff, where I'm like, I think a lot of stuff should be available. Like, I think you should be able to look at a lot of stuff, because taking it away, like making anything taboo, right? Making anything illegal immediately increases interest.
Yeah, and we're here. There's an argument to be made here about certainly about art. We're talking about art, but
literature, I was thinking for sure.
Yeah, and and it's one of these things. But I mean, if it's one of these things, though, that are we talking about the idea, though? Like, I'm not yet. I appreciate there's the perception that we're all being controlled and there's stuff. But the perception, like, once again, if it's not like, are you being the Rocket Man? Was not persecuted in any way. In fact, you could argue, like, is this you could make a very real argument that it would have been in not only his family's interest, but maybe his community's interest to intervene. But you're not allowed to do it. Personally, I'm of the opinion that there's the idea about if you can give free, prior, and informed consent that you want to do something that will almost certainly damage yourself, but that you understand this, you would go into it freely and all that, I mean, how else can you describe the NFL? There's an argument to me. Yeah, you can make the argument that people know that they will do irreparable damage to their own brains and
bodies.
Yes, and all that. And you can make the argument that people can be allowed to do that, but as long as it's clear that they know what they're getting themselves into. But the idea of, in a free society, you have the freedom to swing around your fist but the freedom to do that ends at the tip of my nose. Like
You don't have freedom from consequences.
yeah, but you also don't have the free. It's not freedom to harm others.
Sure.
And the biggest place that here's the thing, whatever kind of government you believe in, the biggest place that they have a mandate to act and curtail anything and everything is when it comes to infectious diseases. That is the biggest case factor of something that individual action, like, well, why should I curtail my individual freedom such that, just for the collective good? I'm like, buddy, you might have an argument in any other thing, like if you want to shove pineapples up your own anus, go at it. But when it comes to infectious diseases, that's not how this works.
What do you think? Because like I said, there's so much bad stuff going on, and like you pointed out, it's definitely a majority, if not all of it's interlinked. What are we doing good?
What are we doing good?
What are we doing good?
I mean, let's see. Like a lot of the stuff where we're doing well is stuff that you take for granted and all of that. But I mean, we're in a golden era of medical technology. Like this is people don't appreciate it. We've already, partly because it's already become du jour, but like less than a quarter century ago, it was an international endeavor just to sequence the human genome. Now you can get it done, I'm like, don't leave a paper cup lying around. Otherwise they'll know exactly about like every genetic balding, huh? Okay, like what the hell, man? I didn't we're talking about gene sequencing, when we're talking mRNA vaccines, like the stuff we are living through now, we're not going to discover a particle again probably in our lifetimes. Like the Higgs boson, probably the end, at least unless physics completely changes. Sure. We're not going to make a big change there. I very much doubt chemistry is going to change, but the stuff we're learning about biology and medicine, absolutely foundationally groundbreaking, blow your mind shit. But this is the stuff people don't believe. Sure. Like in other terms, what do you want? Like the internet has become. It is rapidly. It's rapidly being enclosed. But there is an era of time. Maybe we're coming to an end to it. Maybe we can renew. But an era of global communication and interconnectedness of ideas that this was the dream of so much of humanity. That it doesn't take a steamship to carry a message, that this is the free flow of ideas. The problem is that it is giving the illusion now of the free flow of ideas, but is incredibly controlled by a handful of figures. And whether and let's not beat around the bush. This is not just the tech bros, but it's also say Xi Jinping or Vladimir Putin and whoever your regional dictator is. Yeah, yes, but there's all the control by the few, and similarly, the control by the few is, and also the rapid spread of misinformation shows that the internet is a wonderful achievement, a collective achievement of humanity, but it is like so many other things. It's not a one and done. It takes a conscious effort to cultivate, and I think this is what we need. We see this in journalism too. We need a conscious decision to support journalism outside of, we've got to think of models that work in the digital era that don't just rely on ad revenue. And that's a challenge in a lot of ways, especially since that, it's one thing to get you have to have people that want to actually, that are committed to the idea of investigative journalism. And not just the idea of one paper said this, but another paper said this. Yeah, and one of these is run by a billionaire who doesn't want, a billionaire can fund their own newspaper. It's very hard to do it off a subscription model. Like when we talk about these things, we're not in a good time. But to be clear, we have come to this point not through financial hardship, but because of the prospect of upheaval is disquieting to a lot of people, and they're willing to give into a lot of darker, baser impulses. And a lot of people are going to realize that it's not so easy, you can't get the genie back in the bottle so easily. You can vote fascism in, you can't vote it out.
Yeah, when you were saying upheaval, I was thinking of for one class of people, but I think that you were talking more about like the general population of people, like upheaval of just like even a basic middle class way of life. Is that what you meant?
There's a couple of things that I'm talking about. There's a lot of people who in very powerful positions who reacted incredibly negatively to Me Too. And let us be clear, Me Too, anyone who says Me Too has gone too far, and there are a lot of very powerful people who believe that, nothing materially changed except that there is more backlash against people who object to the use of power to coerce power equals rapist. Yeah. That's what the people are defending, and there isn't a way to argue that with the most powerful person in the world being a convicted rapist, and in every sense of the word is. Same with a lot of people reacted negatively to the Black Lives Matter movement after Ferguson. That a lot of people and I'm not saying it's all people, but enough people were quite willing to either ignore or actively support, blatant patriarchal white supremacy for fascism. And maybe they didn't think it would affect them. Maybe they thought they were one of the good ones, but part of this is coming from the social movements that aim to make social prosperity spread out. But one of them is, you're right, the hollowing out of the middle class. But the hollowing out of the middle class, it's once again people misidentifying the cause of it. The financialization of housing, the use of venture capital,
just the renting of everything.
Yeah, yes, you can't fundamentally. You can't have the landlord making a stupendous profit, and have the business making a stupendous profit, and have the prices be affordable. You can't have all three, and that's chemistry is one. I stick to talking about climate change because at least people are actually pretty accepting that the ideas of chemistry and thermodynamics and accounting don't change. The idea that economics does change, I'm like, yeah, well, a lot of it is just we're clapping hard enough so Tinkerbell is still alive. Economics is a much more flexible science, but getting people to accept the idea that, hey, you know what, maybe the rich, people like the idea that, no, I'll be rich someday. But it's also the idea that what is middle class changes. If I said to a lot of Canadians that if you have a cottage, you are not middle class, you are upper middle class at minimum, that would be, it's one of those things that becomes an alienating sentence to a lot of people. In the same way that say, hey, consent is important, or that, the way the world works isn't the same if you're not white, were upsetting comments that even just the idea of the discussion in some ways was deemed too far.
Yeah. You always say so much good stuff. This is why I wanted to talk to you. But what would you tell people if you had a platform, which you do, and you could say anything to the world, which you can?
Yeah.
And like I said, you already have. But what's your big thing that you'd be like, I want people to take this away from?
The first is there isn't one big thing. It's going to be there. There isn't going to be a one and done. There is never going to be one last battle. This is a garden that must be tended to and cultivated. A liberal democracy with robust journalism, with institutions beyond the government, requires the investment of not just time and resources, but also attention and focus. And what that means to everybody is not going to be the same, but it does mean that you need to involve yourself. I tell this to everyone. I became the chapter president I'm a BC NDP chapter president. And it took very little time for me to do that other than just showing up. And you can say that, I have all these advantages and I don't deny them. But it was not because of those advantages that I got in the position I'm in. The reason I'm in the position I'm in is because they don't pay and they take a lot of work. I would recommend joining a Canadian political party to everybody. It costs $10 a year to join whatever party. I don't even care. Join as a member and ask to go to their meetups. You don't even have to go. I'm not even talking about being on the executive. The executives meet once a month. You can go once a year and just go to the parties and get the emails. Read those emails. Know what's up. $10 a month. I would recommend every Canadian, permanent resident or more, become a member of a political party you support and just follow the process more and volunteer when they ask it. Beyond that, I would really, really emphasize that you need to find a reason to do things in your community beyond just work. Like, you find something that you care about. Join some, like the people, like the atomization of society is a real circumstance. Not necessarily to everyone in every sense, but join a team, join a club, join, you tell me. You can be a volunteer at your food bank. Maybe you didn't even know where the food bank is, but go and volunteer, and you'll see how other people are doing. Go and fundraise for a children's hospital. Give blood. I didn't even know my blood type until this year. I gave blood after the Lapu Lapu Day disaster or tragedy, and there are all these things that society needs on an ongoing basis that we all can pitch in to do. Like, this is the real thing. This is the time. If you're not going, we all like to, I don't know, like, I appreciate you're British, and I'm sure you were raised to some degree with the venerating the Blitz spirit and all that. Like, if we were fighting, if we were fighting the Nazis, yeah, I'd gather up all my grease and give it to the postman every week or whatever so they could turn it into munitions. Like, the idea that you would take action at every level of your own life to contribute to an effort that everyone else is pulling towards. It's easy to say that for a disaster that happens all at once. It's a lot harder to do it in a slow-moving crisis. Like I said, like climate change, like eroding democracy, even the pandemic, a lot of people had a hard time thinking about what they could do. Whatever your strength is, find something you'd want to do and do it in the community. Somebody's already doing it. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to show up.
Celine, thanks so much for talking to me.
Thank you for having me here.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.